go. Hey, I pushed the button and it works. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the How to Podcast series. Oh, if you could have been a fly on the wall for the last, I don't know, half hour, you would see Dave completely struggling to get here, but we're here. And Joe is here, which makes me happy. And I'm ending my
Yes.
day on a high note, Joe. Thank you for being on the How to Podcast series. Hey, how's it going?
Oh, good. Thank you so much for having me again. And I just have to say, I think what's great about it is people who listen to your show are probably like setting up something and they're like, Dave would never do this. And then they just heard you say it happens. So it happens. Even the best of us, we have tech issues. So it's okay.
Wow. Anyways, I'm happy to have you here. And you're a very patient person to allow me to fumble through the darkness and figure this all out. So thank you. It's great. It's great.
Of
Joe, tell
course.
everybody where you are in this big world of ours. You came on my other podcast, which is so great. But hey, let everybody know where you are.
Yeah, so I am in the state of Minnesota. I've been told I have a very heavy Minnesota accent, but I haven't heard it. But yeah, I'm in the St. Paul Twin Cities area, and yeah, I've been podcasting for probably close to a year now.
Cool. Tell us about your shows, plural.
Yeah, so I got two podcasts. The first one started probably I think last July. And I call it my quiet podcast in the sense of I'm not actively like promoting it. Like I'll bring it up when I do, but this one's called Two Voices, One Story. And I do this podcast with my wife. And what we cover is we've gone through some pretty significant life events. One of them is I have a history of mental health, and we cover that to my mental health breakdown. And that left me hospitalized. But then we moved to the healing and restoration. And now I'm a peer support specialist who works with people who are going through crisis. So it's really cool. We also have a episode on, or a season on our son who was born premature, needed a trach, a lot of stuff. So right now, we just recorded another episode last night. And speaking of tech issues, we were like, oh, we got all these new tech, two mics, set it up, and can hardly hear her. So I'm like, I don't know. Do I post it? Do I not? And then the other one is No Time Like Joe Time. And it is where me and a new guest, they pick a show they like, and then we pick two clips from that show to watch, and we take life lessons out of it. It's been a very nice way to connect with people, and I use shows all the time to teach lessons. So my hope is like, you can put some stuff in your back pocket.
I love it. Well, for that show, where is a starting point for a listener? Where should they start? At the beginning, of the most recent episode? Where would they go?
It's nice. You can kind of jump in wherever. I mean, it's always nice if you listen to every episode, but if you see the shows you like, what I always say, I think my favorite part of podcasting is the community. So even if you don't check out my show, check out the guests who are on there. So there's so many cool people. Like I'd rather people go check out the guests, see them succeed. And if byproduct, if my channel gets big, great, cool. But I just fallen in love with the community of podcasters.
So 1 year in, you've passed many of the milestones where people struggle. How many episodes total do you have for both shows at this point?
I think for both shows, we're probably posted that are live. It's about 40 plus, because our other show we've done bi-weekly, and then we've kind of moved it to monthly. And then I think we just hit the 12th episode of No Time Like Joe Time, but I've got like another 12 episodes recorded.
Good. What has been part of your learning process from the early days to today to help you in your journey as a podcaster?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I recommend is just I know it's so exciting. It's so cool to be like, oh, this would be great just to jump into, but give yourself like a month to listen to podcasts, to kind of think about why you want to do it. I think that's what's kept me on track is I had a month where I was just listening to podcasts. What kind of tech do you need? I had no idea about host sites before I started podcasting and no idea what they were. I was like, what? You don't just post it on the podcast sites? But the biggest thing I took away from these is the why. Because if you come into podcasting thinking you're going to be the
Yeah.
next big thing, statistically, not going to happen. And then you're going to fail. You lose, like, why am I doing this if I'm only getting 20, 30, 50 downloads? And so for me, it's my why with my wife was this is just a time for us to come. It's our thing to do together. We have a great conversation. If other people
Yeah.
tune in, oh, sweet. For No Time Like Joe Time, it's about human connection. Is just I get to talk with somebody and learn about how they see the world
Yeah.
through their eyes. And that's
How are
awesome.
you finding guests for that show?
So if there is some Facebook groups, if you have a podcast that does have guests, you gotta try a couple of these groups. I'm gonna look them up. But if you go on Facebook and just put like, find podcast group or whatever, you'll find some. But the one I really like, it's called Podcast Guest
Okay.
Collaboration Community. It's the admin is they're really active. If you want, they'll send you emails. Like there's a lot more options that can be done, and I've had probably like 90% of my guests come on through here, and just everybody has been
Good.
so delightful and just, yeah, absolutely amazing
Yeah.
community.
I love how collaborative podcasting is, and that
Yeah.
even though there might be a bunch of people who do something similar to what you do,
Yeah.
they're still there to help you
Yeah.
and support you and build you up. It's kind of the reason why I have this
Right.
show is I wanted people to find out about other great podcasters because I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm always on the hunt for the next show that I want to listen to.
Yeah.
So hearing you come on, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go check out your podcast. That's kind of the idea. But as well, I just wanted to have as many different voices in podcasting because when I listen to
Mm-hmm.
some of the other podcasts about podcasting, they tend to be one single voice and one single opinion.
Mm.
And sometimes
Yes.
that opinion doesn't work for me in my situation. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, that's the only way you can podcast. Then sometimes I think some people think, well, I can't do it that specific way, so I guess I can't podcast then. And I want more
Mm-hmm.
voices. I want
Yeah,
more
I like
voices.
that. Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think you're absolutely right. Like just like what works for one person may not work for the other. And
Yeah,
so
yeah. And it's
smart.
great because again, there's people who come on the show and they do things completely different than I do. And now I become
Yep.
the student. I love it. It's so great because it's working.
Yeah.
Like you can't argue with success. So whatever is happening for them, then awesome. This is amazing. So
Mm-hmm.
I just love the community. It's great. And then I think the coolest thing I've ever had is when you actually hear the voice of a listener. When they're like, "Hey,
Mm.
Joe, love the show. Loved episode 5.
Yeah.
That was so powerful. I have to listen to it again and again. It's so good." And you're like,
Yeah.
there's a real person out there. Like it's not some made up
Right.
avatar. I think they might be this kind of person. It's actually a person, right? That's so cool.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I always just assumed like my mom created like 100 accounts and just she was, oh, you
Look
did,
at you with your
oh,
little
nice.
microphone. You're so cute. Those little headphones on. Yeah, right.
That is so close to my mom. It's scary. How long have you been doing the How to Podcast
It's just a little
show?
over 3 years, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
So I I don't know. Somebody asked me this, and I don't know really know what the real true answer to this is, but they're like, "Why are you doing
Mhm.
so many episodes?" Like this, I do 3 a week, right? And then so
Yeah.
I don't know, I have a lot of episodes for this podcast, but I just find there's just
Yeah.
if somebody reaches out to me and says, "Dave, I want to come on as a guest co-host," I just make an episode. I don't care when it goes out. I just make another one. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm doing a fire hose of content to my audience, but for the most part, I haven't
Yeah.
anybody say, "Hey, cut it out. That's too much." So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Right. Yeah. How dare you give us so much free entertainment?
The entertainment we don't pay for. Thank you. Yeah, no.
Right.
Yeah,
I, that's cool. I like that. But I don't think there's ever enough information out
right.
there. I don't think I'll ever hit a point where I'm like, okay, I've learned
Yeah.
everything I need to. Like, there's always
Every
something
day I
else.
try to find the end of the internet and I've never found it. I just keep looking,
Right.
scrolling. There's got to be
Exactly.
the end where it's like, congratulations, you've got to the end of the internet. And I'm like, yay. But no, it's not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
I have a question for
Ah,
you. One thing I've been doing on my show recently
sure.
is I have what I call my question of the month for podcasters. And I ask people to
Oh,
call in on my SpeakPipe link on my howtopodcast.ca website. And I use SpeakPipe, it's an audio message thing where you can leave me a voicemail. And I ask a question to my audience, and I want them to call in and or whatever message in, and leave me a voice message and answer the question. So
cool.
I'm going to leverage your time to be one of my
Please.
responders to my question for June.
Okay.
And so
Love
yeah,
to.
right.
June. Great name.
The question, what I would like you to do is again tell us the name of your podcast, introduce yourself, and then answer the question. Okay, so you're going to be my guinea pig.
Okay.
You ready?
All right.
And I'm putting you on the spot here.
I'm
I
ready.
know. Okay. So
Love it.
you're gonna introduce yourself, name of your shows, because you have two. And then you're gonna answer the question. And the question simply is this: on average, just general, on average, over a 7-day period, over a week, how many podcast episodes total do you listen to as a listener over 7 days? Average.
Mm,
Okay, you ready?
got
So
it.
you're gonna introduce yourself,
All right. Yep.
name of your podcast, and then answer the question: how many episodes a week do you listen to? Are you ready? Are you
All
nervous
right.
right now?
Yeah,
You're
I'm
not
ready.
nervous.
No, I'm gonna step into
Oh,
host mode.
everyone, put on your seatbelts. Joe is getting into host mode. I'm sitting up straight. I'm gonna fix my shirt. Okay, all right. Are you ready? Okay,
All right.
go.
Oh, I'm ready. Hi, my name's Joe, host of Two Voices, One Story, where you can find wherever you get your podcasts. The other one I have is called No Time Like Joe Time. There, me and a new guest, we watch a new show each week and take life lessons out of 2 clips. That is not only on podcasts, but it's also on YouTube. Now, this is how I spoil you all. And if you want to be a guest, you can email me at no time like no, wait, no time like Joe time at gmail.com. Now, June, I hear you have a very good question. How much podcast do you listen to on a week? Well, that varies. If I am in the heat of recording, not a lot. And the main reason is I want it to be my own, and I am so easily influenced. Like, if you let me watch or listen to like 20 minutes of a like true crime show, the my no time like Joe time would instantly just become we could talk about shows or we could talk about lessons we can learn in murder. And just like not but if when I have downtime, um I should say, let me go back to my heyday in podcast. I would probably listen to maybe 3 to 5 a day, 20, 25 per day. And that was with a job that I could easily listen to podcasting. And yeah, I think just it goes in sprees and kind of varies. There was a time in my life I was using podcasts to get through work, and I listened to a lot. There's times I was listening to podcasts to um, learn about podcasting. Didn't listen to it as much. Now, actually, I'll say this is going to sound a little self-centric, but the main podcast I listen to now, like I always want to check out like people who like I work with. I want to go to their podcast, read, leave reviews, 5 stars, listen to some of that, what they're doing, because it's kind of cool when you meet the person behind the podcast. But a lot of it, I listen to my own podcasts, mainly because I'm going through it and being like, I don't like the way I did that. Or, oh, you know what would have been really funny is if I did this. So it's kind of like taking notes.
Good answer.
Yeah. June's probably like, I just needed a number.
Just give me the, give me the number. It's a number.
13.
Good. Okay. I love it. Yeah, because for me, I work nights and I work by myself and I have free Wi-Fi. So as an introvert, win. For all those are all home runs for me. And so I listen to podcasts all night. So I get almost 8 hours a night to listen to podcasts. And if they're short, I can cram many. I can binge a whole podcast in a week and catch up on multiple episodes. So I have a lot I listen to. My wife, on the other hand, she might listen to 1 or 2 a week. But where she works, which is interesting, she had like a training program she had to go to with a bunch of people from her company. And part of their homework was to listen to a podcast and come back and report on what they learned from this specific podcast. I'm like, she comes home and she's got that look on her face. Like, I'm like, what? She's like, I have to listen to a podcast for work. I'm like, when? Come on. Right?
Are you like, well, I know. Are you like, well, I know 8 really good podcasts if you're interested.
Hey, have you heard the Doe Time, like Joe Time? I think that should be one of the ones you have to listen to for work. Right?
She will walk away very angry. What did I just listen
thank you for participating in my question of the month. That's great. So what I'm doing is I take all these answers from my audience, compile them into an episode. And then we just go from answer to answer to answer all the way through. And as many people respond, it's free promotion for your podcast. It's just answering a question, and it's really simple. That's all it is.
Oh, nice.
So it's that engagement piece to kind of do that. And the scariest thing in all of this is putting a question out and nobody answers. Because you're like, you get to the end of the month and you're like, okay, everyone, nobody answered the question of the month. So you just have me. So that's the dangerous part of it, but when it works really well.
How many times have you asked the question from June?
Well, this is it. This is the first time.
This is it.
So
okay,
now I'm collecting the answers now.
Got it.
It's interesting.
Got it. Okay. I'll just be curious comparatively how long my answer was compared to others.
Fix it in post. We'll make you sound
very
awesome,
good.
Joe. Like, not like there's a lot of work, but it's good. I love it. So, okay, what are you learning right now in podcasting? What is some of your victories and maybe some of your struggles? I'd love to chat about that.
So I think victories is I'm starting to get really confident in what I'm doing. When I first started No Time Like Joe Time, first 11 guests were old people I knew. And so it gave me time to kind of figure out the format of the show. It kind of gave me time to say like, okay, I like this. I don't like this. But the first time I had somebody from the Facebook group who agreed to be on my show, it was terrifying. And fortunately, everybody's been just lovely who I've worked with. But now, the next evolution I'm seeing of No Time Like Joe Time is playing to the guest strengths. So I have somebody who's a therapist who's coming on, and we're watching 2 clips from The Simpsons that kind of show Homer's not always great attitude towards therapists. Because I think one of my favorite lines is Marge comes out and he goes, "Hey, Marge, ever since you've gone to therapy, everything's been about you." And she goes, "Homer, I just left my first session and I haven't even said a word." And Homer goes, "See, I just left my first session." session, and I didn't even say anything.
Well,
So, so I'm starting to kind of tweak, like instead of just, oh, let's just watch random clips, kind of learning who the person is, picking clips that they're going to really be able to show their
nice.
strong suit to. And then just editing is another thing that's gotten a lot better. I'm not all endorsed by them, but I use something called
Nice.
CapCut. It's been really nice. I no way believe this is like the one and only. This is just one that works for me because it's really nice to edit compared to at least my last editing software. Really easy to see. Like I try to take out some of the ums, and it's really easy to see where they are. It's also got some cool AI features. Like after I do an episode, you can drop it in a full length video to shorts. And one thing I found out, like, it's really important to post, especially like if you do YouTube stuff, it's really important to do shorts because you get tons of views. Those I'm getting like 5 to 1,500 views.
Wow.
Per one. And so like those shorts are great promotions. And so instead of having to go through it, it just does it for me. Both defeat and a victory. Figuring out how to do 2 microphones on one computer. It does not feel like it should be that complicated. But either it is, or I'm just making it complicated, or a little bit of both. But a couple things I learned. Cheap does not always make a good purchase for podcasting. For Christmas, I was like, oh, sweet. There's this 2-in-1 mic system, and it's got a soundboard. I'm going to get that. The sound was horrible. And then, so I'm starting to think maybe it's the soundboard, but this is, alas, where like soundboard's probably going to be the next thing I learn about. Because I would have thought my little cute little baby soundboard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm going to turn this off because not very big. But I'm like, oh, I just can't do as much features. That's fine. But just doesn't sound, I don't know. But I found another program called OBS. Mm-hmm. It is how I was able to set up 2 USB mics. So the defeat was my wife and I recorded an episode for 2 voices, one story last night, and just we couldn't hardly hear her. So I'm like, do I not post it or do I salvage it? And just, it's very defeating when you put all that work into something. You're like, this is good. And then you listen to it, you're like, but it happens, and I think that's one thing just to remember. If you're making a podcast, you're going to have those days and it's going to suck.
Yeah. I had played with my computer one night and I switched my 2 mics because I was doing something, but I forgot to switch them back. And I put the live mic like 7 or 8 feet away from myself. And I had a dead mic in front of me. So it wasn't hooked up to anything. So I recorded a whole episode with my guest. And you could tell they were like not having a good time because it was picking me up across the room. And that's what they were hearing. But they were like, he's the host, so I'll just do whatever. And you could tell they were not having a good time.
Right.
But when I played it back, I'm like, why is it so crappy? And then I realized that I was talking in the wrong microphone. I'm like, well, that's great. So what I had to do is I had a really good track from my guests. I had all their answers. I just re-recorded all my questions after they left, and I just recreated the episode while I had it. So I had my original track, which is really hard to hear, and then I just added a new track. I just do audio. I just added a new track, and then I recorded my little questions again, and I was able to salvage the whole interview. But I'm like, oh, so frustrating.
Nice. Yeah, but that's a lot of work. I we were on my wife and I were on a podcast, Love After Lullaby, where they talk about like how people's relationship evolve
Mm.
after having kids. And I felt so horrible because they were very quiet, but I just assumed it was with my tech. And I wanted to seem cool. And I'm like, well, I got really good headphones, so I could hear them. And then afterwards, they were like, could you hear us okay? Our audio's terrible. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said so.
Yeah. Yeah. So all that tech stuff, it doesn't matter if you have one episode or 100, something's going to happen. Just,
Mhm.
yeah, just
Right.
be patient. It happened today. Be patient. It
Yeah.
all works itself
Yeah.
out. There's always ways to fix things. So, anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
so for you, what about like social media and podcasting? Do you have something? Do you have a strategy? Do you have a channel? Do you have a thing, or are you
Yeah.
like kind of just I just podcast?
So this is a new adventure for me because I am finally like I'm on TikTok now. I haven't been on TikTok ever. I got to reset up my Instagram. I am on social media, and I think I'm trying to figure out what my relationship is with it because I like the main reason right now I use it, like I kind of mentioned earlier, is shorts. Just put stuff out there, these little things that draw people in. And like I had one short video where I recorded at Comic-Con. It's very funny. It's we're standing on a balcony. We see all these people and I'm recording and I'm like, look at all these people who are so excited to see No Time Like Joe Time. They're all here for me. And I'm slowly paneling and I get over and my wife is standing there with this look, which is it's staged, by the way. And she goes, no one's here for you. And I'm like, oh, but that got like 16,000
Wow.
views like that. But I didn't see a lot of traction come to my yeah, so I don't know. This is probably going to be my new adventure is learning more about social media. And honestly, I'm probably going to be looking to talk with people who know more about social media. I'm not really that interested in
Hmm.
learning more about it because it's
Yeah.
not my strong suit. And so whether it's working with a family member or, I think there's people who do stuff for not
Yeah.
crazy expensive. But yeah, YouTube Shorts,
Yeah.
that's another good one. Facebook, man, I need to get better. It's so funny. You create a Facebook group to share with people, and I've kind of like hid it under a rock. Like I don't want people to know about it. Yeah. And I'm like, because I brought in all the guests who were my first 11. I'm like, oh, this is
Mhm.
our thing. This is us now. And I'm like, I should probably put it out there in the world. So
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah, very, very. So basically, the takeaway is don't listen to me about social media. I, I guess the only thing I should say with that is, don't feel pressured to do
Yeah.
it if it's not your thing. At the end of the day, be you.
Right. Yeah. Don't force it. It's not, it's going to come
Yeah,
off as forced if you do. It's not real. You're just there because you have to.
yeah,
It's a job at that point. Right.
yep,
So,
yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Well said. That
yeah,
is what it feels
it's like,
like.
oh, I got to go to the internet. I got to do social media. I got to do the thing.
Yeah.
Because I hear people
Mm-hmm.
like if you release an episode, you got to do 7 different posts on Instagram within a certain period of time, and it has to be like this, and this is the format for the best reach. And I'm like, really, really, like we have to do
Yeah.
like I thought I could just be a podcaster. Can I just podcast?
Right.
Like, isn't that enough? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It just yes, sticking to your thing. I've been bringing this up a lot because I use media as references. I always think of Peeta from the Hunger Games when he's about to go into that battlefield. He's like, I just want to go out
Mm,
being me. And that's how I feel a lot with stuff when I'm like, there's some social media stuff I'll do, but I don't want it to
yeah.
become my life. I don't want my who I am to be tied up with
Right.
numbers.
Okay. On that topic, numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We go into Facebook group rooms. We hear people on podcasts. We hear all this talk around numbers. What's your thoughts on tracking your downloads and watching them grow and obsessing over numbers? Some
Mm-hmm.
people get really caught up, and especially new podcasters. I'd almost like to tell new
Yeah.
podcasters to take 6 months off and just don't look at them at all and just
Yeah.
get better at podcasting.
Yeah.
But it's in our DNA. We want to see growth,
Yeah.
which I understand as well. So I'm kind
Yeah.
of caught between the two. What do you think?
Right. No, I think I very much agree where, you know, there's a split of like, yeah, you know what? I know my why. That's why I'm doing a why. And if this episode gets 1 million views, awesome. If it gets 1 view, awesome. I had a good
Mhm.
conversation with Dave. That's
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking for. And but at the same time, like especially when I bring in guests, I kind of want to be able to flex a little bit and say, yeah, I'm getting this. So it's tempting. Um, Finding the expectations of what really starting out looks like. So I feel like I was very surprised. My two voices our Two Voices, One Story podcast released 2 episodes. Both of them got 80 plus
Beautiful.
downloads. Like first day, I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's great. And then they slowly kind
Yeah.
of tippered off. And now it's like 40 to 50. And again, that's not really pushing it. Like we're not really recording it. So I'm pretty
Yeah.
happy with those numbers. No Time Like Joe Time, I came out like this is gonna, man, I'm gonna probably hit 500 viewers first day because now not only is it me, but I'm having new people every week sharing it. And it
Hmm.
started off slower. And it was on YouTube and the podcast. But yeah, kind of just kept at it. Kind of go back to your why. Like, okay, if this doesn't get above 20 views,
Hmm.
are you gonna still do it? I like it. But then I started getting some good episodes like 200,
Yeah.
250, stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? That's for
Yeah.
me, that's great. And I think really having that expectation of, I think if you can manage expectations and just say, man, it would be cool if I could get 50 downloads. That I know at first that doesn't feel like a lot, but when you think about how many podcasts are out there, how much
Yeah.
media there is to consume, that's a
Right.
lot. And I was listening to a Buzzsprout stat.
Yeah.
Buzzsprout is my
Okay.
host site. They were saying that if you get 90 downloads within a month, you're top
Wow. Look at
50% of
that.
podcasts. And if you have 10 episodes or more, you're like, I think, don't quote me on this, but it was like 50 to 60% of podcasts don't have more than 10 episodes because they don't
Yeah.
get the numbers they want
Yeah.
and they quit. So, yeah. And I guess the only other thing is if you want those big numbers, you
Yeah.
got to work for it. You have to do the social media posts. You have to, I was somebody on my guest, she had an agent, you know, it, there's podcast agents like
Mhm.
125 a month. They get you on as many podcasts as
Yeah.
you can. So,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Because again, one of my questions I've asked podcasters in the past is what is your minimum number that you would show up for as a podcaster? What is that number?
Oh,
Like we always talk
yeah.
maximum. I want 1,000 true fans and I want 100,000 downloads. And,
Yeah.
I'm like, if I
Yeah.
monetize, I need this much numbers. I'm like, well, what's the opposite? What's the minimum that you show up for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. For me, it's,
No, it's hard.
oh, sorry. I
It's
didn't
a
mean to
hard
interrupt
question
you.
to ask, but a hard question to answer
Yeah.
too, right?
No, and I think for my why, for me, is there a host there? That's the only
Yeah.
reason I'm showing up. I've never asked anybody. I mean, I haven't been on a lot, but I've been on some podcasts, and I just don't even think about asking how many downloads do you have, because it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying it's wrong
Yeah.
to ask, and that's not where I'm coming from. But my why revolves around community, support, and
Yeah.
human connection. So that stuff, it means nothing for me. Like anybody else, like if I were to go on this podcast and then go on, like, I got to think of more
Oh, Joe
big
Rogan.
time.
There you go. Yeah.
Joe
Yeah,
Rogan's
of
the one
course.
that always
Right.
comes to mind.
Yeah.
Like, obviously that'd be like, whoa, I can't believe this, but it would have the same
Right.
value to me as you and that, or somebody who this was their first podcast. Because, like, for me, I think stuff I've gone through, I see such a brilliance
Mm.
in humanity. And getting
Yeah.
to know somebody, 1 out of 7 to 8 billion people, and you got to meet this
Right.
one person. Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And that's what I love about podcasting is that one person can get a microphone and connect it to the internet and share whatever they want to talk about to the world. And there's nobody here that's going to say, Joe, you can't have a podcast like that. Joe, you can't do it that way.
Right.
No.
Mhm.
You don't report to anyone. Right. So,
Right, exactly. It's
yeah.
Yep. Definitely. Creative output's another why for me, because I was thinking about like how many podcasts there are. Person I'm doing a podcast with later, talking like I always do a bit in the beginning, and I always try to make myself look like an idiot. And so the whole premise is we watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I'm saying I think the next thing to be sexy is clowns. We need to make them sexy. And it ends with a clip of a clown being punched in the face. So that's going to be me, but I'm talking about, I understand trends. And the guest is like, oh, what trends do you understand? Are you looking to? I'm like, well, first, podcasting. I think this is going to go places, and I'm pretty sure I'm the 5th person to ever have a podcast.
Yeah, well
so
done,
ahead of the
done.
curve. And then the other one's like MySpace. I'm just keep an eye on this. MySpace, I think, is going to take down Facebook.
Things. Yeah.
So just real
it.
stupidity.
I love it. Yeah, it sounds like a really fun podcast to do, Joe.
Yeah. Well, I said this. I don't think I officially sent you something, but you have an open
I would love
invitation.
To come on. Oh yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
So numbers, they don't matter as much to you. You'd podcast no matter what, right?
Yep, I would. And, I don't want to make it seem like I'm stoned, like I never carry. I do. It stunk when I had one video come out and it got 120 views, and the next one came out and got 12. I didn't get it. I was like, I don't know why, but, I guess comes down to what shows you like. And I will say, for numbers, one thing I recommend is finding guests at first in your circle, because I think that draws more people in, where it's like, oh, you and I have like 60 mutual connections. A lot of people are going to want to hear us talk who we know, and that's kind of a nice little boost for your ego.
Good. That's awesome. And what would you say to early Joe listening to this podcast? He hasn't started yet. He wants to do a podcast, but the early version of you, what did you need to hear from another podcaster?
It's a good question. I think don't be surprised to find out even if you don't get huge numbers, your podcast will still have meaning to people. Because I did not expect to hear things from Two Voices, One Story of people being like, thank you for sharing your story, because my father or my husband or I don't feel like there's a place to talk about
Right.
these things. And so I, and when we were a little bit behind, we had some people be like, "Hey, when are you going to
That's
release the
good.
next one?" Yeah. And it's like, we don't have a huge following, but the people who listen,
Yeah.
it means something. So just remember, it's not just about uh, quantity. I also think
Mhm.
about quality.
That's good. I love it. I love it. What else can we close off with, Joe? I know you got another podcast to record tonight, but what's your closing thoughts for us on around podcasting, where we're heading in podcasting, whatever you want to talk about?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I will say, if you're thinking about getting into podcasting, and you've probably heard this, just
Yeah.
go for it. Or if you're a little nervous, go to the Facebook group, and people are always posting, "Hey, I'm looking for a guest." I've made so many meaningful connections. And that is, I think, my favorite part. It will always be like, I think this is why I'm going to be in podcasting for a long time, because I just love every
Mhm.
person I've met. So, including
Oh,
you, Dave.
I was holding out hope for that, and you did. You delivered. I was on the edge of my seat going, oh, is he going to say it? Is he going to say? He did. So thank you.
He's either going to say including or
Except
except.
for you, Dave. Yeah. No, I love that. I love it. Joe, what's coming up on the podcast? Like, what can we see in the future? Any any news you can spill on maybe some of the things that are coming up?
Yeah, I wish I had some kind of super exciting thing other than just season 2 is going to be kicking off pretty quick for No
Good.
Time Like Joe Time. Um, like I said, always looking for new guests, and um, yeah, that's about it. Just have fun. Like I said, it's on YouTube. It's fun. It's good to watch like the first bit with it, but then you can pretty much listen to podcasts from there. So
I love it.
however you want to do it, I'm not your mom.
Look at you with your little fancy headphones. Oh, you look so cute. Thanks, Mom. Okay, where do we go, Joe? What do
Yeah.
we do to find everything? Come on, do the thing. Come on.
Yep. Okay. So No Time Like Joe Time, anywhere you get your podcasts, except for I think Google Podcasts, because that's dying. But everywhere else, you can also find it on YouTube, No Time Like Joe Time. Same thing for TikTok. Find me that way. Instagram, hopefully I'll have it up soon, but don't look too hard because I'm not committing to anything. Um, and then Two Voices, One Story, just on podcasts. Um, Look that up. Like I said, two very different shows. One's very deep, sensitive issues. The other one, I act the fool. So, yeah, that's where you can find me. And, always good to see people. But like I said, it's fun to support. It would be super cool if you gave Dave's podcast a 5-star good rating, because, hey, he gave me a chance to talk, and that's worth a good
Well,
review, right?
you make my show better.
Or, well, thanks. Or people are like, well, you were a really terrible guest. Well, then you should give Dave a 5-star because he put up with me. So there's no reason
Win-win.
not
And I
to.
hope your mom leaves a great review for this podcast episode.
Oh my goodness, she will. I can almost promise you she's gonna say, "Oh, that Dave sounds like he's really good at this. Oh, so nice."
I love it. I love it. So thank you. Thank you for doing
Love
this.
you, Mom.
Onward and upward. You have recording to do. Thank you for squeezing me into your evening. I really appreciate it. And looking forward to listening to more of your podcast. You keep me company at work,
Yeah,
Joe. So thank you for that.
it's great. Yeah, you got an absolute pleasure. I will support you any
Likewise,
ways I
please, if I
can.
can do anything to help you, I would love to do that. All right, let's stay in touch.
Awesome.
All right,
You
everyone, all the
bet.
information, as always, you know how we do this. In the show notes, go over, leave Joe a great review, do the 5-star, do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around, whatever you want to do. And let Joe know that you've been listening to his podcast. And let's support each other in the community and let's grow podcasting. Thanks, Joe. Hey, thanks for being here on the How to Podcast series. Glad to have you on the show with us, listening in. I hope they're finding value in the podcast. I hope you're finding something that helps you with your show, helps you with the tools and the information from these amazing guest co-hosts through our daily Daves and these solo episodes. The variety of what we're doing here on the podcast is all designed for you so that you can get the tools you need to create your podcast and keep going with your show. That's why we're here. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm glad you're here finding value in this. If you would like to do a little bit more than just be a listener, if you want to do community with podcasters, we have a thing called our Meetup on meetup.com. You can come find us, and there'll be a link on our website at howtopodcast.ca, and you can come and join in on our Meetup. Instead of just being a listener, you could actually participate and come in and join other podcasters, just like you, at your stage, at your level, where you're at right now. And then other podcasters who are maybe a little further down the road, who can learn from you and you can learn from them. And we host these meetups on a regular basis. Again, go to howtopodcast.ca and you'll find all the information there. We'd love for you to come join us at our next meetup. The only thing we need at our next meetup is you. You're the only thing missing from all of this. So consider joining our meetups. Again, they're totally free on a regular basis, all through howtopodcast.ca. And I'd love to hear more from you about your podcast as well. There's a SpeakPipe link on howtopodcast.ca. Leave a message. I'd love to hear about you and your show and how we can work together to get your message into the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for sharing the show with another podcaster that you're like, hey, I think you'd really like this episode. Go ahead, share the episode, and let's get more podcasters on the mic. Thanks for listening.